Morning, Team Judgment Settlements. Today is Sunday the 6th, and I just wanted to give you guys an update about yesterday. Yesterday, we did make contact with Mr. Francis J. Webb, aka Frank Webb, and I'll just maybe spend just 5 minutes giving you guys the update on that so that maybe each of you could do a couple things to update the mind map with some information, and I'll let you know the general direction of where we're going with this. So I was out pretty much all day from about 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and drove all the way over to both of the addresses in Delaware. It's about 300 miles round trip. Even though we talked about being reimbursed miles on the car, since I'm about to sell that car, I'm really not too worried about that. I just submitted an expense report for gas and tolls only. And if you go into, I don't have it up here in front of me. If you go into the general expenses in Easterly, you'll see a receipt for, I think, $44.97 for the gas, lunch, and 2 tolls. So that's where that is. Basically, I went to this address first, which was the 797 Indian Point Road. That turns out to be his daughter Sharon's house. I found some mail at her front door addressed to her, and then Frank Webb actually did confirm for me later that day that is Sharon. So we can get rid of this address since that's not where Frank lives. This is the confirmed address for Francis Webb. I'm going to call him Frank Webb from now on. That's what he asked me to call him, and he does in fact live there. You'll be interested to know that when I went there first, there was no one there, and I left a letter, and then I went out and I got some lunch, and I came back and he still wasn't there. So what I did was I drove down the street to this house, knocked on the door and asked him if they knew who he was, and the guy said, "Yeah, that's my father-in-law." So that's his wife's father. And he was able to call him up right there and find out where he was, and he told him that he'd be back in like 10 minutes, and just for me to go down there and wait for him. So, had to go to a couple different places, but at the end of all of it, I did get to speak to Frank for. Let me get back to the camera here. I did get to speak to Frank for half an hour, and he's basically a long-term farmer. He's 68 years old, decent guy. Like most older farmers on the Eastern Shore, they're just, they're decent people, and they're kind of a little bit more laid back and kind of handshake by the word kind of guy, and. Right away he did establish that he knows Rocky Kimbrew. He said he saw him just a couple days ago. He sees him pretty regularly. He's known him for a long time. They have a friendship/business relationship. Basically, in short, he's lent Rocky money to try to help him over the years, and secured those loans with the mortgages on the properties. But basically kind of confirmed for me that Rocky just, even though Rocky never lied to him or tried to trick him, Rocky never did some of the things that he was really supposed to do. Like, for instance, on Railroad Avenue, he lent him that money to fix up the house on Railroad, and Rocky didn't do that. So that's why Railroad Avenue is still not rehabbed. The Cobb Hill property, Willard's, I think it's called Farmers Willard's Bank or something like that. Those were the 4 open mortgages, and we had seen assignments of those mortgages to an attorney for purposes of foreclosure, and that's what was happening, is that Willard's Bank was going to foreclose on them, and Frank Webb basically paid off Willard's Bank to bail him out of foreclosure, and ended up getting assignments to those mortgages. He wasn't able to confirm for me what the balances of them were, but that was the story. So he is owed those mortgages. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but those are the mortgages that are in front of our judgment. And let's see what else. Basically told me that Rocky spends a lot of time in Virginia and West Virginia, and he's spends a lot of time traveling. Apparently he now sells like farm equipment and maybe even sells some of it overseas. Doesn't sound like he's real successful, but sounds like he's somewhat of a busy guy. And I think Frank Webb has some sort of business relationship with him with that as well. So Frank has gotten our letters. He knows who we are. He said that he was holding off on calling me because he wanted to talk to Rocky about us, and he had talked to Rocky about us just last week and had indicated to Rocky that it's a serious situation for the both of them and that Rocky needs to deal with this. And Rocky's response was, "Oh, that got settled a long time ago. I paid off Russell Ruggiero. That got settled." And a natural response, whether it's true or not, is yet to be determined. But I told Frank Webb, as far as we know, it's not been settled. It shows open, and we own 2 judgments against him, and he owes us more than $100,000, and that's our position. And I explained to Frank that I come to the both of them as a gentleman first to try to resolve it and talk it out and see what they have, and if truly it was paid off at some point in the past, I'm open to that possibility, but I need absolute proof to see that. And if they don't have it, then our only other remedy is to go after the properties. And Frank understands that, and I know that Frank realizes that it may have been paid off and it may not have been paid off. And I explained to Frank that Kimbrew and Ruggiero did have some other dealings together, and it looked like maybe there was something else that Ruggiero had done with Kimbrew, and that other thing was paid off. And maybe Rocky Kimbrew was thinking that that other thing was this, when it really wasn't. So kind of where we left it was that Frank knows it's a serious situation. Frank's, very matter-of-fact and a detailed kind of person, and even though he lent Rocky this money, he also doesn't want to see himself get hurt over this, and he realizes that we're potentially a problem for him because we're ahead of him on some of his mortgages and behind him on others. He read the letter we sent him, and he understands it completely. He's a smart guy, and he wants to get it resolved, and he said that he was going to impress upon Rocky the urgency to get it resolved, because if we couldn't get it resolved, that our remedy was going to be to just go after the land, and that's not good for either one of them. So he said, would you just give Rocky a few weeks to talk to his lawyers and see if they can maybe get in touch with you and provide you proof that the Ruggiero debt was paid off? And I said, yeah, I that's what I want. If he can show me, then that's fine. If not, then we got to work something else out. So I talked to him for a while, like half an hour, and I think he realizes that I'm a fair and decent guy, and that I would prefer to try to resolve this peacefully rather than taking it right to court and fighting about it, and I think he appreciates that. So I let him know that this is kind of cookie cutter for us, and it's not hard for us at all to file a motion for writ of execution to levy on property, and I explain how that works and how it's sort of like a mortgage foreclosure, and I think he gets that. And I said, if we can't resolve this in another way, that's where we're going to go with this, and he understands that, and he's going to convey that to Rocky as well. So let's see what else. I indicated to him that we do a lot of these kinds of cases, and each one's different, and some of them are stronger than others, and this one is not necessarily our strongest because we didn't have the benefit of talking to Russell Ruggiero because he died, and Ray Shockley, the attorney who was the personal representative of the state of Russell Ruggiero, wasn't able to give us any definitive information one way or another as to the the status of the judgment and the pay history. And we can see that Frank Webb's in front of us on some things and behind on other things. Basically, that we buy these judgments at a discount, and therefore it might be possible to settle with them at a discount. And even though he owes us over $100,000, we might be willing to settle for a bit less than that. And just try to throw that out there, so in his mind he thinks maybe there's some flexibility with us. Frank appears to be a pretty wealthy farmer as far as farmers go, and that's pretty common for these older farmers that have a lot of land on the Eastern Shore, and they I don't know how much land he has, but I know he owns at least a couple farms. And when I was looking for him earlier that day, I drove around his property a little bit because he's got a number of other buildings and farm equipment in the back and tractor trailers and stuff like that, and they're valuable, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was worth a couple $1 million. And for him to bail out his friend / business partner Rocky Kimbrew with his debt, and loan him all this money, which he did. I mean, he loaned him. He basically bailed him out of foreclosure on the Cobb Hill Road, and he loaned him money on the railroad property, and that's a lot of money to lend somebody and not be really worried about getting it back. And he just sort of lets that debt ride, as he describes with Rocky Kimbrew, because Rocky's a friend and he's trying to help him, and that's a lot of money just to loan somebody as a sort of a favor. So that tells me that Frank Webb does have a good bit of money, and if there's a settlement to be had here, I see that money coming from Frank Webb to kind of bail his buddy Rocky out again, and to sort of save his own ass so that we're not a problem for him. So I don't know what we might get out of this. I think a lot of it depends on what they produce, what they get out of their attorneys to show us what did or didn't happen with settling or not settling the Russell Ruggiero debt. I kind of think they're not going to be able to produce anything, or if they do produce something, it's going to be a settlement of a different debt. So I think you guys need to maybe take another look at. My recollection was there was some other deal that they had that had gotten paid off, but it wasn't for this, and we could kind of prove that it wasn't for this. So I think we need to get that information and arm ourselves with it in case they come back and say, oh, we paid it off, here it is, and we can say, that was something else, and we can prove it. So unless you can prove that you paid off these judgments, the $31,000 judgment from 2000 and the $16,000 judgment from 2003, as far as we're concerned, you still owe the money. If you lost your documents showing it was paid off, or you didn't record a release, that's your problem. And, unless you can definitively show us that it was released and paid off, we're just going to assume it's open. And the Maryland law does provide that the burden of proof falls on the debtor. So it's his burden of proof. It's his responsibility to show it was paid off. Otherwise, guess what? It's not paid off. So that's our position, and I explained that to Frank, and he gets that. So what do I think we'll get on it? If they can show us that it was paid off, we'll get nothing. If they can't show it's us been paid off, then we're probably in a position to ask for some money from them. How much is yet to be determined. Do I think we're going to get $100,000 out of them? No, I don't. I think we all know that the railroad property is not really worth going after, just because it wasn't rehabbed. The Giles property, that lot in the woods, is just not worth going after. And the Cobb Hill property is the only valuable property. And Frank confirmed for me that he does own those 4 mortgages that are ahead of us. Don't know what the balances are, but since he bailed them out of foreclosure, I'm assuming the balances are probably pretty high, but that we might be able to figure that out later. If I was to guess at what we might get out of this, I'd say maybe somewhere between nothing and $20,000 would be my guess. And in my mind, anything over nothing would be good, because this is not an incredibly strong deal. If we could get our money back, or maybe make a few dollars on this, that'd be happy. Of course, I'll try to get whatever we can out of it, but each one of these deals is different, and sort of find out what you can do over time as the deal unfolds and information becomes available. So that's where we are. He does tell me that Rocky's, you know, a decent enough guy and, you know, would be willing to probably sit down and talk to us. And, you know, I proposed that the three of us sit down and talk it out and work something out. And I think he would be in favor of that, and I think maybe Rocky would probably be in favor of that as well. So that's where we are with it. Let's see what I have here. You can kill all the addresses except the address on, let's see, except this address right here, 1744 South Bowers. That's a good address for Frank. The only phone numbers we have for Frank, one of them we had was good, but Frank says it's a fax number. That's why we can never get through. 302-335-4670 is his fax number at his house, but that's not a good number. Frank gave me what I believe to be a cell phone number, which is really going to be the best way to be in touch with him. 302-632-9748. The number again is, I thought I was talking to you on the video there. That number again for Frank Webb, I think it's his cell phone, is 302-632-9748. That's all I really have. He has our numbers, he has our letters. I did show him the, you know, the book here with the title work. Just kind of flipped through it a little bit and, you know, showed him what we have. And I can't really think of anything else at this point. You know, I encouraged him to have Rocky's attorney call me, you know, so we could talk it out, see what they have or don't have. But at least we know where he is. At least we had a meeting with him. We have his phone number. I think I made some progress with him. He got to know me. I got to know him. We got to hear the story with Rocky. And we kind of hinted to him that, you know, we'd be willing to make a settlement with him and give him a fairly decent discount to settle up with him, just kind of based on all the circumstances of the case. So I'd say, aside from hearing some news that we were hoping for, like I was hoping he was going to say that all those mortgages were paid off or something like that, which is not the case. You know, aside from that, I think we made about as much progress as we could possibly make. So it was a success. You know, it does sometimes take all day to find these people, and it did. You know, went out, had to go to a couple different places, talked to a couple different people to track him down. But you know, at the end of all of it, we did get to have our meeting and talk to him, and it just goes to show that we can usually find these people. They're out there. They're usually out there, and it's just a matter of looking. And even though he didn't return our call or write us a letter or anything, send us an email, he was getting our letters. He did know about us. He did take those letters and show them to Rocky. Rocky even, by the way, he said Rocky even got our letter. I'm not sure which address Rocky got our letter at, but Rocky had known about us because he got our letter. I thought all of Rocky's letters were returned to us, but I might be mistaken about that. So you might want to look at and see if there was one address left over for Rocky that we hadn't crossed off our list. That might still be good. But that's where we are. You guys can ask me about this more on the next meeting if you want, but I figured I'd just make this video for you and let you digest it. And let's see if we could maybe get a couple updates. Nicole had made another Frank Webb mind map just to put his stuff in a separate mind map. So maybe, Nicole, if you would just update the stuff that I've given you here today with his phone number and the conversation, just a brief explanation of the conversation there. Angela, if you would perhaps just update the Google map to leave only the one remaining address, which was the Bowers address. That'd be great. And let's see, Joanna, can I think of anything for you to do? No, I guess not. You're fine. But that's where we are. So thank you, everybody, for helping me find him. And yeah, we're moving in the right direction. So see you guys on next meeting. Bye-bye.